Welcome to another edition of the Outstanding People Podcast. I'm your host, Slade Abisror. If you're looking for a visual reference to our podcast, check us out at our YouTube channel, Outstanding People with Slade Abisror. And don't forget to subscribe. Today, if you love comedy, if you love the entertainment business, well, then you're going to love my next guest. Demetri Pappas has been working with some of the biggest names in Hollywood for the last 25 years. I'm talking Will Ferrell, Kevin Hart, Steve Harvey, Sacha Baron Cohen, and so much more. He is the personal head writer and comedy consultant for Ryan Seacrest Productions. He was the host of How Men Think and the Real Time Crime podcasts, and he happens to be a great friend of mine. We've produced 3 shows together, and today we're going to talk about what it's like to be a writer in Hollywood, and we'll talk about some of the fun times we had on some of the shows that we produced. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Demetri Pappas. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm gonna be honest. I'm thrown off right off the bat because when you said you wanted me on your Outstanding People podcast, I thought we were going to speak to someone outstanding.
Well, I honestly think you're outstanding. I know we're friends, but it's funny, like, because when I do these podcasts, right, and I talk to people, and a lot of times it's people that I know from the business, but when I start getting into their resume and their body of work, I'm like, holy shit, like you've done a lot of amazing things and you're no exception. I mean, as I read through your resume and I just name off some of the people you've worked with, you know, Will Ferrell, Kevin Hart, Ryan Seacrest, Steve Harvey. I mean, these are big, heavy hitters in the industry and you deserve it. I mean, you're one of the funniest guys I know.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. The truth is, it's kind of like Instagram when you have followers and you don't know if they're bots or not. I just threw these names on my resume. No, I'm kidding. I really did work with them.
Well, listen, I want to get into a few things. I mean, obviously, like I said, we've done 3 shows together. We've produced the Wayne Brady show together. We produced the Tony Danza show together. We produced Steve Harvey's talk show here in Los Angeles. But I want to take it back first because what I like to do on these podcasts, as I'm talking to, you know, successful people in the industry or you know, people of your stature, I want to know how it all started. So I have 2 questions right off the bat. Is one, when did you realize that you wanted to get into the entertainment business? And when was it that you first realized, hey, I'm funny?
I realized I was funny when you asked me to be on this podcast. That was the first tipping point. I don't know that I ever, you know, when I was younger, I don't know that I considered myself funny. I will say when I was really young, my parents would have friends over, you know, for like dinner and this and that. And as a little kid, I would kind of peek around the corner and I would see my dad telling stories. And my dad wasn't a comedian. He wasn't, you know, he worked in finance, but he would have that room captivated while he was telling a story. And sometimes, because if it was different people, I'd hear him tell the same story, but I noticed the story wasn't exactly the same. He was kind of changing it. And to me, I thought that was so fascinating that he could sit there and these people were hanging on his every word on, you know, it wasn't like this story like I saw a UFO. It was just normal stuff, but he was telling it in such a way that people were captivated. And I thought that was really cool. And that's something that always stuck with me. And then, awesome. Yeah, it was, you know, as far as role models go, like, you know, he was a great father, but for many different reasons. But that was something that never left me. And I was young at the time because my parents, you know, separated when I was like 4 or 5. So, you know, that's one of those memories.
How old were you around that time when you saw him telling these stories and being enamored with it?
I mean, it must have been around that age, right? Because they separated at that age. So, and I remember they both were there. So it's really one of my, I guess they say you don't remember much from before, you know, you turn 5 and stuff, but this was something that stuck with me.
Yeah. And then, so is that where you started to develop this idea that I want to work in entertainment?
No, I had no idea. So I had no idea that was even a thing. And then in 1981, I was about 8 years old. My sister wanted to go to the movies and my mom was going to take us. And we went to see the Cannonball Run and I didn't know what it was. Watched the movie. I loved it. But it was the first time that I remember in the credits, they had the outtakes, you know, the bloopers. And I remember watching that and they were laughing and having such a good time. And I remember thinking that's kind of what I want. I want to have a good time no matter what you do, you know? And I didn't quite even put together then that was something you could do for work. I grew up watching Chevy Chase movies, you know. I'm not proud to admit this, or maybe I am. I once watched Christmas Vacation every day between Thanksgiving and Christmas one year. Not like it took me a month to watch it. Like I watched the full movie every day. But I started to piece together, and I was like, okay, they make these movies. Like, this is people, that's their job, is to make these things. And so that's when it kind of started going a little bit more in depth for me.
Yeah,
and I realized that you could do that.
Yeah. And that's a great movie to set it off, because I remember watching Cannonball Run, and I just remember the comedy in that movie. And I remember the star power that they put together, people from all walks of life, Frank Sinatra, Dom DeLuise, Jackie Chan. And it was just so funny. And that always stuck with me too. I love that movie.
Yeah, because it was just all these big names, and they were just having fun.
Right. And then so you eventually go on to go to Emerson College, which is known for it's a great communications program for people wanting to get into the entertainment business. So was it there at Emerson where you started to then develop this idea that I can actually make a living and I can get into this business?
Yeah. So I went there with the intent. I was like, okay, so I want to work in film and television production, but I had no idea. And then the first month of school, I kind of hit it off with this buddy that I met. And we were like, the Parents Weekend talent show was coming up or whatever, like in October. And he's like, hey, we should do stand-up at that thing, because you could just sign up and do something. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, neither of us had ever done stand-up. And I remember my other roommate goes, hey, guys, you can't just get up there and make weird noises. And I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. Clearly that's what he thinks of us. So that took care of that friendship. But we're like, okay, but I think that pushed us even more to be like, what's he talking about? We can do this. So we wrote a set, and we did it at Parents Weekend, which was, if I may say, it was a pretty ballsy move. But it worked out. I think it was really well received, and we got a bunch of compliments afterward. And I think, as anybody knows, you get some compliments on something, and you kind of you get the taste for it. You want to kind of do it again, right?
Yeah.
So 100%. We did. We started going out to the clubs in Boston.
Do you remember the feeling of your first time when you got up on stage there? Like, were you just utterly nervous, or were you excited? What is that feeling of getting on the stage for the first time?
Yeah, both. I was excited, definitely nervous. And I have this thing that I never really, so he and I did stand up together for a while, and then we stopped and I did some on my own. But what I never really told anybody was, this is an exclusive for you, Slade.
Right on. I love it.
I would black out when I get on stage. Like, if I memorize the entire set, I would get up on stage and just completely black out. Like, I'd be like,
really?
And I would forget it. But it was something would just take over, and I'd just talk and kind of fall back into it. And I think part of what I really like about stand-up, which I don't really do anymore. I don't do anymore, but I have considered doing some again. What I like best about it is kind of what I saw, I think, with, what I was explaining with my dad, is that he changed the story a little bit. And I love the chess match of kind of reading a room and saying like, oh, this is going to work. And I think that works in all, or this won't work, or they're not enjoying this. Let me mix it up. And I think that works in all types of life. When you're younger and you go out on a date, you're like, oh, well, I got to be interesting, right? You go to a job interview, and it could be a completely different job or different person from the last one. And so you kind of adapt to that. And I feel like that was something that always interested me. And I think that was the fun of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Wow, that's pretty
kind of
crazy.
Like right now, how I'm wooing you, and this is amazing.
I just blacked out
because I'm reading you.
I just blacked out. No, that's amazing. And I can never do that. It's something I always thought about. I mean, not anymore, but it's something I always wanted to do. But it's like the one thing that scares the piss out of me, dude. To like get up in front, and I can get up in front of large groups, and I can talk, and I can deliver a speech, or I can talk to my staff or whatever it may be. But just doing stand up scares the shit out of me. I don't know why, but kudos to you for doing it. That's pretty amazing.
Thanks. I do know why, because it's a big deal. You're really putting yourself out there. And, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was nervous. I still get nervous when I, talk to a room or something like that. Not to a room, like people in the room.
Sure. Sure. Well,
but I once saw a guy
talk.
Yeah, no, I do that as well, because sometimes I'm the only one that'll listen. I do know a guy who, same type of thing. It was the talent show. I think it was another school talent show at Emerson. And he got up and he he was doing stand-up, but he was saying something, and he riffed. He made a little off-the-cuff comment, and it was horrid. It was like offensive and this and that. And, he did the right thing. He came back out after and he apologized, and everybody applauded for him. But it was terrifying. And that's one of those things that stuck with me too. And so I think I constantly have a filter going that's like, okay, and just you run things through a filter real quick.
Oh
and you
yeah.
think yes, no.
So you, after college, how do you find yourself getting your foot into the entertainment business?
Well, I got to give credit to Emerson College for this one in that they had an LA program where the Emerson's in Boston, and we had a semester where we could come out here and do internships out in Los Angeles. And so I did that. And then I kind of started working, and I never really thought I wanted to be in Los Angeles. So I moved back east and I worked in New York for a little bit. But then it was more exciting out in Los Angeles. So I moved back and I started working. I contacted people that I knew and people from my internships and whatnot. And they told me to get lost.
Yeah, right. No, I think that, look, you said the key word, internship, right? That's the best way that I know of to get your foot in the door and to get yourself to a place that in an industry that you want to get into, no matter what it is. But, for me, that was the best way that I got into the entertainment field. I interned. Do you remember what it was like the first time you got paid to work in the entertainment industry? Like what that feeling was like?
Yeah, that was pretty cool because I had interned and that was just, free learning experience. But the first time I got paid, I was like, oh, look at this. Like now I'm doing this. And it was still like, granted, I was a PA. I wasn't doing much. Like I was doing a lot, but not glorious work. And I remember thinking like, all of a sudden I got a paycheck and I was like, well, this is something like I'm going to work on a television show and I'm getting paid for it. And I remember the first time it really clicked with me was I looked outside my office window and I saw people lined up to come see the show. And these were people on their vacations, on their spring breaks or whatever it was, that came to Los Angeles to see a TV show. And I thought, listen, if people are using their vacations to come to where I work, then I'm kind of doing something right. Like that's pretty cool because I'm not going to take a vacation and go to Caldwell Banker and just watch people work. Right.
Right.
So I figured it was pretty cool. Like I knew I was onto something at that point.
Absolutely. No, that's very cool. And I remember seeing
no offense to Caldwell Banker.
No, none taken.
Okay, cool.
But no, I remember seeing that too. I remember, being at my first show. My first show was Rosie that I worked at, Rosie O'Donnell. And I remember how people, it was a great show to cut my teeth on. It spoiled.
That's what
me.
I mean. That's what I mean. It must be nice. It was one of the most popular daytime shows of all time.
Yeah, it was. And like to see the audience members coming there and how excited they used to get, and to know that I had a small little part in making that happen. Because at that time I was, I interned there and then I was a PA and then I started working in the human interest department. But it just was a cool feeling to know that all these people and it was like people were waiting. They couldn't get in. That like each day people would come and they'd get turned away because we didn't have enough seats. And just to know that it was something that really made people that happy was really exciting for me. And I
felt like a big shot too, like walking past this line of people who may or may not get in and they're like, good morning, Mr. Abisror, or whatever they called you.
100%. And I'm wearing my credential that says the Rosie O'Donnell Show. And I'm like the low man on the totem pole, but nobody in that line knew that. They would just look at me like I worked for the Rosie O'Donnell Show and I felt so special.
And this was New York City, right?
Right.
So even more special out here, in Los Angeles, it's kind of like, all right, well, whatever. But New York City, especially at that time, the #1 show, that's a big deal.
It was great. And then, so at what point then, I guess the first show that you worked on, what were you working any writing capacity yet? Or was it just kind of PAing and learning the business?
It was just PAing. I got bumped up. I only PA'd for a brief time, which was probably for the best for everybody involved. But I got bumped up to script coordinator. And then also, then I had a brief stint at post-production supervisor at the same job, the same show, which I was fortunate to bump up, but nothing really close to the script coordinator work. Was just, it was understanding scripts and reformatting and moving things around, which was cool, but it wasn't really writing or anything. And I don't think really like what. Go ahead.
I was just going to say but looking, you're the script coordinator. Your job is you're looking at those scripts every day, and I have to believe that was kind of getting ingrained in your head, and you're looking at these scripts, going, "Hey, either I like this, or I can make this better," or just kind of giving you that itch to want to get into that and do that, because that it's in you, right? That comedy is in you, that writing is in you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That is very true. And I remember thinking, okay, well, this is something. And then I worked on the Keenan Ivory Wayne show at one point, and nice. I got a call after that got canceled, and I got a call from the executive producer that I hadn't really had much interaction with. And she said, hey, and this was, she called my home phone. I happened to pick up, like, I lucked out here as far as I'm concerned. And she said, listen, my producing partner and I have a company, and we do a lot of stuff with Comedy Central. And I thought you did a great job at Keenan, and I want to know if you want to come work with us. And I was like, yeah. So then I was off, and I was doing still more script work, but I was doing it for Comedy Central now. And a lot of like the original Friars Roast and stand-up comedians, like the Premium Blends and the Comedy Central Presents. And I would sit down with comedians and be like, okay, well, here's your act. I broke it down into bullet points. Does this make sense to you? What do you want to, and so we kind of go through their act together. And I was like, to me, that was fantastic, because we're talking like Dave Attell, Mitch Hedberg, like we're talking Gilbert Gottfried, like real big
comedians at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would go through their act with them. And sometimes they'd be like, oh, that's a good point. That's a good bump. Put that bullet there and stuff. And it really kind of gave me confidence, and it definitely ignited a fire where I was like, oh, I'm on to something here. Like, I'm really enjoying,
That's
more
amazing.
working in comedy.
Yeah. And, and going to work every day and dealing with comedians like that. I mean, it's just such a pleasure, right? To be able to go there and hear and laugh and go through. I mean, I know it's work too. It's not all fun and games, but it's really cool when you get to do something in that wheelhouse, and get to see comedy being formed at its rawest form.
Yeah. The first time I actually got bumped up to writer was a show that we worked on, was Wayne Brady.
That's right. Wayne Brady.
And so I was a production supervisor at the time, and my buddy, Dickie Egan, is a comedy writer too. He and I went to college together, and we were working together, and we stayed late one night, and Wayne used to introduce his guests with parody songs. And we stayed up at the office late one night, and we wrote a parody song for Beyonce, who was going to be coming on the show. And just kind of for fun, but then we gave it to some of the producers, or showed it to somebody, and they apparently gave it to Wayne. And we were sitting in our office like the next day, and we heard, no, Wayne, like in the bullpen area out there. And he comes into our office, and he's holding the song. And he says, did you guys write this? And we're like, yeah. And he goes, okay, why don't you just leave the writing to the writers? And he slaps it down on the table.
No.
And we said, okay, no problem. And then he goes, guys, I'm just fucking with you. He's like, this is fantastic. My God. Yeah. He goes, this is fantastic. I want to do this on the show. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. And after he left, and I was like, we basically just both crapped our pants at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so our first real writing thing was Wayne Brady introing Beyonce. And that was a big moment. And then eventually we got bumped up to writers. But I will say, to your point, like, I'm in the room, I'm seeing comedy. Once we got bumped, we were in a rehearsal with Wayne in the morning. We had written him a song for something else, and he did it. And in the middle of rehearsing it with the band, he has because this is Wayne Brady, he's that talented. He has this out of body experience, and he just riffs 2 more verses. And we're like, well, that's fantastic. And he turns and he goes, did you guys get that? Did you write that down? And we're like, no. We're too busy enjoying it, Wayne. Shit. You got to give me a heads up if I got to write something.
He was so uber talented, man. He still is. I mean, Wayne, he's such a talented guy. I really do feel like that show, that ABC did not give that show enough time to grow. I really think, he was finding an audience. The show won the Emmy the first year it was on TV. Like, I don't know why they clipped it so quickly. But I do have to say that was one of the funnest times that I've had producing a show. I came in season 2. It's funny how I got there. I was doing the Dr. Phil show, total 180 from where I came from at Rosie.
Dr. Phil's hilarious.
It was great. It was great. But yeah, I came, 9/11 happened in New York, and I needed to get out of New York, and I wanted to find another job. I came to LA, and they were starting up Dr. Phil. So, excuse me. So I did that I go and I do the Dr. Phil show, and I just hated the content of it, right? I just hated dealing with people's problems and this and that. So I'm there for a year, and I talked to John Redmond, who was the supervising producer at Wayne Brady and was then now getting bumped up to executive producer. And I had worked with him at Rosie, calls me and he says, hey, I need a producer over here at Wayne Brady. Do you want to come over here? And I like, before he can finish his sentence, I'm like, yes. I want to get back to
Dr. Phil was like, why is it that you think you want to leave? And you were like, see ya.
Well, he didn't say that, but the executive producer of the show was so angry at me, right? So here's the funny part is, so I'm there for a year, and I get a call from the executive in charge, and they say, hey, the EP wants to meet you first thing in the morning. You need to come over to the studio first thing in the morning. She's going to meet you there before the staff gets there. I said, oh, wow. Okay. I get there. She's like, come with me. Doesn't even say hello, good morning. Come with me. Marches me over to the vice president of Paramount's office, and they both just berate me about how dare I want to leave the show, and I owe them this, I owe them that, and they're going on this whole tirade, and I'm just sitting there going, what the hell? Like shouldn't you be happy for me that I'm going to a place I want to be, and just say thanks for the year that I was here? So anyways, at the end of it, they go, and by the way, you're not leaving because you have a contract, and we're not letting you out of your contract. And I'm like, contract?
Well, why berate me then? Why not lead with that?
Right. But I'm thinking, I'm like, I don't remember ever signing a contract. And so I go to them, I'm like, can I just stop you there? And I remember just feeling so ballsy at the moment because I have the EP and the VP at Paramount. And I'm like, one, I don't think you could stop me from leaving anyways. But two, I never signed a contract here. And their jaws just dropped, and I walked out. I dropped my badge and I walked out. And, so after that, everybody at Dr. Phil had to sign contracts.
Oh. So the people that are still there all these years later, it's on you.
Dude, if you ask them, they know the story of Slade, because it was because of me that they started making everybody sign contracts so that they can't leave.
I used to start jobs and be like, you guys want me to sign a contract? And they're like, nope. And we're just going to get rid of you whenever we want to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If it's a show you enjoy, sure, you want to sign a contract. But and look, and nothing against Dr. Phil. I think he's a great guy, and what he's doing, he made a whole genre of daytime television that's successful for him. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
But long story long, so I went over to Wayne Brady, and I met you, and we were working with John Redmond and Shane Farley and Tommy Crudup and all these like great guys in that have done such amazing things in daytime, and we had a ball, man. Do you remember we sat in the common area, I think for about an hour, thinking of songs that have lady in it so we can make it Sladey. And we just
that was a full day.
That was a full day of us just fucking around.
Lady. I'll tell you what, that show was too fun, because after that, the next job I had that didn't involve John and Shane and Tommy and you, I got there and I was like, so, hey, at what point do we go over to the wine bar? We're going to throw fake oranges at each other? Like, what's happening here? And it was just a completely different atmosphere. And people are looking at me like, why are you so laid back? Like, this is a job. And I was like, but aren't we supposed to do like crazy shit?
Yeah, but you can't just gloss over that. So we would go daily to the wine bar at the Grove across from CBS Studios.
Well, not daily, not on show days.
Well, not on show, but yeah. Well, sometimes if it was anyway, but I remember somebody pantsing me down there at the wine bar. I remember us we would have so much fun, and we were just such a good group. And then, like you mentioned, the oranges. Remember the Florida Tourism Board sent us a bunch of fake oranges so we can promote it on the show. And what we did is we all gathered as much as we can, and we went to our neutral corners, and then we just started fighting in the office, throwing them at each other.
It was like a Nickelodeon show, except it was not being filmed.
That's right. Oh man, it was so fun.
And just to backtrack, the reason you got pants at that wine bar is because, just to show you how casual you took Casual Friday, you showed up to work in like a bathing suit. Well, and it wasn't me that pantsed you, but I kind of feel like
I'm from Miami and I live in California. What am I supposed to wear?
Not a bathing suit to work unless you're a lifeguard. That's what.
Oh man, that was great. And then unfortunately, we get word that the Wayne Brady show is being canceled, and they are now going to invest. ABC is now going to invest everything into the Tony Danza show. Tony Danza is going to do a show in New York, and John Redmond, who was the executive producer of Wayne Brady, is now going to be the executive producer of Tony Danza. So of course we're all from New York. We all had lived in New York previously. We're like, let's go.
I was pumped.
Yeah, me too. And that was the first time that I was back in New York since 9/11, right? And to see the city thriving again, and to do a show there with an icon like Tony Danza. I mean, what are your memories from that show? I just remember it being so much fun.
It was fun. I remember the very first day that he arrived, they were doing like an A&E special, right? So the cameras came in with him. So my cubicle was right outside his office. And as he walks up, the cameras are on and he's like saying hi to people and the names are right there on the thing. So he had them, and he walks up and I'm like, oh my God. And I grew up watching Who's the Boss and all that. So this was big for me. And I hadn't met him before getting hired to write, for him. And he comes up and the cameras are on. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like this is going to be on A&E. This is a documentary. And Tony Danza is coming up to say hello. And he comes up, he's like, hey, walks up to me and says, hey, how are you, Dominic? And I was like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to go exactly the way I thought. It was good though. And I remember we would get to work at like 5 a.m. because that was a live show. So every morning, 5 a.m. be in this dark basement hallway of the ABC building in New York, and with Tony Danza like briefing him on stuff before he went live on TV. And I thought that's pretty cool. That was cool for me.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And yeah, I was about to say on the A&E special, your name is Dominic in the Chiron.
Yeah. I went by Dominic for about 7 years after that, just to make it easy for people.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the guy is like, 20 years older than us, and he's already up at 4 o'clock. He's in the gym working out before he comes into work. He was something special. And you're right. Like he was iconic to me because of Taxi and Who's the Boss. And then we're now working with him very closely, I might add. We're going out with him. We're having drinks. We were having a great time. Thirsty Thursdays was a thing.
That's right. Jake's Dilemma.
At Jake's Dilemma. Oh my! Matter of fact, I'm going to see him tonight. I'm going to see
really?
Tony's in. Yeah, he's in town doing a show. He's doing his Standards show here in L.A. tonight. So I'm going to go see him. I'll tell him you said hi.
Dominic says hi.
Dominic says hi.
Just kidding. That was the only time he called me that. You know what though? He gave me one of my best. So I thought, what an honor. Grew up watching him. That's like a great celebrity thing to be working for him. He gave me one of my greatest celebrity moments ever. In that, you remember there was a Barnes and Noble across the street from the ABC building at the time. And Tony came running into the office at one point. He goes, hey, come with me. And he grabbed me and somebody else, maybe a couple people. And we went across and Muhammad Ali was there signing books. Oh, wow. And there was just a big crowd around him in this room. But when Tony got up there, the crowd parted basically, and Tony and us walked up. Tony said, "What's up, champ?" And they took some pictures together, and he introduced us, and then we went, and then we left. And that to me was amazing.
That is amazing. That's so cool. And I remember that day because I got to the Barnes and Nobles after you guys in time to see you guys up there. And I was so jealous that I wasn't part of that. But I remember
waving to you through the crowd. I was like, what's up?
it was really, really cool to see that. And that was the thing about, hanging out with Tony. Everybody knows Tony Danza. You walking down the street with him, it's like people are stopping and they're saying hi. And we'd go to Jake's Dilemma for Thirsty Thursday and we're drinking and the whole bar starts singing, "Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza." It was really something to see, to be around him and be in his inner circle. And that was a fun time. And then, and then that show, with talk shows, a year is pretty typical. If anything more than that, you're lucky. With Tony, we got 2 years, and then they wound up canceling that show. And then, so what did you do after that? Where did you go?
Let's see. So I stayed in New York for a while, and I did some MTV stuff. It's called like Your Movie Show and stuff like that, and that was cool. I got to do something with like David Spade and, and
nice.
Sandler and
And
that was
you've
cool.
You've worked with some pretty incredible people. I mean, you're incredible yourself.
I mean, technically it's outstanding today, but go on. I'm listening.
You are outstanding. You're outstanding. But no, really, you have, I mean, the names in comedy that you've worked with are just, I mean, they're at the top of the top of the top of the heap. What is that? What impression does that put on you? Like, what do you take away from that? Because it's really not a lot of people get that opportunity.
I'm definitely humbled. I'm very happy that that I have this opportunity to do this stuff because, like I said, I don't think of myself as this big. Like I came from just thinking, I want to have fun and I want to make jokes. And to be honest, I do. This is going to sound corny. I do enjoy obviously making a paycheck. Who doesn't? But I really like making people laugh. I think even the last few years, when life has gotten really difficult with some of the stuff that's going on. I think in the past, I didn't really understand how much of a good feeling that can be to laugh or to make someone laugh and how much it might help people. And so I've become more aware of that. And so that's just a side note. That's that's really cool for me. But writing for those big names, it's cool when people, I have my own moments, like I said, with Tony and with, Will Ferrell, where it's like I wrote for I watch these people and then all of a sudden you're in a room with these people and they're reading stuff that you wrote or they're asking your opinion on something on a delivery. But there was a moment where I was like, where it finally came up to the forefront for me. And I was down in Atlanta. I was going to surprise my sister at her surprise party. And I got a text and said, hey, can you write something we want to do something with Will Ferrell. Can you write something? I was like, I'm out of town. And like, come on, so I literally wrote something on my phone while I was going with my brother-in-law to pick up a cake. And
wait, so you were asked to write for Will Ferrell and then you said, no, I'm out of town. I can't do it.
But it wasn't like, yeah, I mean, I guess I did. It was more of like, I don't think it's possible. Like, when do you need it by?
Oh, God. Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Kind of, I guess. I don't know. I guess I did. But I really didn't think that one through. And so then I wrote something on my phone. And in my mind, they were like, okay, I was going to get notes back, and like, okay. Then I just fired it off. And then they were like, yeah, okay, he's going to do it. And I remember he did it word for word. And he did it as Ron Burgundy. It was something.
I was about to ask, is this the Ron Burgundy bit?
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
And he just did it like word for word. And I was like, oh crap. So part of me was like, it was a boost of confidence to be like, okay, you just fired something off and he liked it and did it. And then part of me was like, okay, well also side note, be more careful. Like, don't just fire stuff off and expect to get notes back. Like, so
that's a testament though to, who you are and your quality of work, right? Is that you can do that. And I think also too, you got to look at it. We've been in this business a long time, that celebrities are people like us, right? I know a lot of people put them on pedestals and, obviously Will Ferrell is one of the greats. But it just goes to show you that, you're in that realm that you can fire something off on your phone and write it. And he's like, oh, great. I love it. And that's why you work with these people, because you're good at what you do. I've always seen it. I love that is, that you're humble and, I don't know. I wrote something. I didn't know if he was going to do it. It was amazing. And then he does this as Ron Burgundy. I mean, come on. It doesn't get more iconic than that.
Everybody quiet. Slade's complimenting me. Go ahead.
So at what do you then
start? I don't like to bother celebrities. Like, for instance,
of course,
like you said, they are real people. I'm always, when I'm in a room, it's like, maybe a little too quiet, but I'm just like, oh, here you go. Yeah. But I don't want to soak up their time. I don't want to be like, oh my God, or, hey, what do you think of this? Like, they ask me a question, I'm going to answer it and I'll have a conversation with them. But I just try and make it just like this. Like, we're just hanging out and you want me to fade off in the background, I'll fade off in the background.
Yeah. Well, that's a smart approach, and, you don't want to overdo it, but you're there when they need you. So at what point, how do you then start transitioning to, I know we kind of went a couple of years working on different projects, and then we come together on Steve Harvey's show. But prior to that, were you working with Seacrest prior to that, or was that after Steve, or how did that all come about?
Yeah, no. So I've been working with Seacrest for it's about 13 years now.
Oh, wow, that's a long time.
But I also get to do other projects as well. Yeah. So
Right.
I had done a little something at America's Funniest Videos, and then
nice.
yeah, and then I got the job with Seacrest, and I was just doing that for a while. And then we got in such a good routine with the stuff that we do that I was able to I do other jobs as well. So now I kind of have my own business now where I just kind of freelance and write or consult with people in terms of
So
comedy.
you were around for the American Idol days, and then also I know that you work with him on his radio show and some of his other gigs that he has. But what was it like to work at American Idol? Was that cool?
I mean, the nice thing about working for Ryan Seacrest is that he's extremely good at what he does. So you don't really have to do much, He's a fantastic live host. So really it's just, I don't know. I'm there to help the staff or whoever, whoever needs whatever. But
yeah, I've always been in awe of that, like how he's able to, work as much as he does and bi-coastal and just, man, it seems like he has a twin brother that nobody knows about,
Right.
And it's just,
I mean, he's extremely good at managing a schedule and getting stuff done, and he takes things very seriously. And it's actually quite inspirational to see the way he does things. Nothing is too big or too small.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, if you want to make it in this business, that's how you have to be. You have to just kind of charge at it and do the best you can. I remember when I first moved to LA and Ryan had billboards around town and he was a radio DJ, just a regular. He wasn't the Ryan Seacrest of today. He was the guy who they would make fun of his like pearly white teeth, and he would make fun of it. I'm not saying I'm making fun of it.
Yeah.
But the billboards would say like, "Oh, look at the guy with the bleach blonde hair and the pearly whites." It was a big advertisement for his radio show or for the station that he was on. And then, he just blew up and became the hardest working man in Hollywood. So really cool. Really cool.
I mean, I'm thankful for, I've gotten a lot of work, because listen, there's plenty of funny people in this town, right? And there's plenty of people that can do it. I've gotten a lot of work through relationships and through friends and stuff like that. And that's really, I'm thankful for that. And that's probably the bulk of it. And that's what happened with Steve Harvey's that, our buddy Shane Farley brought me on there. And that was cool because all of a sudden I'm supervising comedy for Steve Harvey,
Now talk about that, because Steve Harvey, Kings of Comedy, legend in the comedy world. You are now his head writer. What does that feel like?
It was a little surreal at first. Like I said, Shane brought me on, and that was fantastic, and it was a lot of fun. And then the first time I remember I had to pitch Steve Harvey, and all of a sudden it sunk in. I'm like, oh, okay, this is Steve Harvey. This isn't like, so let's come at it with some strong stuff here. And we had a staff, and it was interesting. I remember the first time I got a laugh from him, and it was just kind of I like to do stuff, deadpan and stuff like that. And, I'm not one to really laugh at my own stuff anyway, and I said something and it was kind of deadpan, and then there was a beat and he looked at me for a second, and then I think he sunk in because I think he expected something from like a facial expression. Somebody looked at me, he started laughing, and then he turned and he goes, "This motherfucker." And I was like, and I think that was my name with him for a while. He called me this motherfucker for a while because every time I do something that made him laugh, he just goes, "This motherfucker." And I was like, all right, well, I don't know if you want to bleep those or whatever. Just
no. Listen,
this is raw.
Motherfucker. Yeah, this is raw.
Yeah. Whoa, easy.
Oh, sorry.
Cadence.
No, look, and when you're talking with Steve Harvey, I mean, that's just the language that that's how it comes out.
Yeah.
And I remember that was also a fun time because we were back together again. Shane, you, me. It was a fun group, and Steve was really. He was great. I was only there the first season, a little bit of the second season, but that first season, we had a lot of fun. And Steve, once you're in his good graces, he's very generous and he's a very good guy. And we had a rooftop at our studio. We were able to hang out, smoke cigars up there with Steve. And to me, I remember, a lot of times I have to catch myself, right? And I have to tell myself, all right, you're working or be professional. Like sometimes I see like these childhood icons of mine that I remember watching on TV, or just like a Tony Danza or like a Steve Harvey or somebody like that. And now I'm sitting there, I'm smoking a cigar with Steve Harvey, just bullshitting, having fun. And I'm just like, I have to pinch myself, you know? Mm-hmm. And I remember times looking over and, you know, you're there talking to him, smoking a cigar. I'm there too. I'm just thinking like, how cool is this? I'm with my like great friends. We're here with Steve Harvey on a rooftop, smoking cigars and drinking really expensive scotch.
Studios, yeah.
At Universal Studios, right? You know, it was a fun time. It was a fun time while it lasted. Yeah. So obviously, we did some really cool things with the show. We got nominated for an Emmy for the show, which was awesome. And then
lost to Judge Judy, but damn it, she deserved it.
How does that happen? But so after that, you did the second season. You did the full season of season 2 of Steve?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then so after that, where does your career take you?
To the Outstanding People's Podcast. No.
So you hit your pinnacle now then.
Yeah. This is it. This is it. Basically my retirement.
Yeah.
More of the same. I kept doing, projects, still working for Seacrest and doing different projects here and there. And then I kind of, I got into more of finding some time to do some writing. And I've been writing with a buddy of ours, this guy Gil, and it kind of kicked off mostly during the pandemic, is that we just jump on Zoom and we'd start writing stuff, and now he and I have been pumping out some scripts.
Yeah, and just so people know that are listening, Gil was a writer at Ellen, so really talented guy, and I guess if you're gonna have a partner, good partner to have for writing.
Yeah, and he came on Steve. We brought him on Steve for a while and stuff like that. And he used to work in news, and he's a real good guy. And we just kind of not completely dissimilar from what I said about the beginning of college, where I just connected with that one buddy. But Gil and I have a good, rapport, and we can jump on a lot of mutual respect, and we can just kind of sit down and pump out some scripts and come up with ideas. And we're kind of, when people say, "Oh, I went out with somebody," this is going to sound weird, but people say, "I went out with somebody," and it was like the third date. It's like Gil and I, when we sit down to write, we're already well ahead. We're not doing what I'm trying to say is, I already know what he's saying, and he already knows what I'm saying, and it's a good jumping off point to write. So we've been writing some feature scripts and some TV pilots, and got some interest. We'll see what happens there, but that would be a nice.
That's great. And, and you and I have had this conversation where. It doesn't always have to be these big over-the-top shows with big celebrities. Sometimes you have to take time for yourself and get the creative out of you, right? You have to do things for yourself and do things that make you happy and do things that, like I said, just there's a lot of creativity in both of us, and you gotta take time to get that out sometimes. And I think you guys are going to come up with some really amazing things. You both are super, super talented. The last thing I want to leave you with is for people listening, obviously, there's people that love the entertainment business. There are people that want to get into the entertainment business, especially maybe some comedy, some writing. What is your advice? Because you've been through it. You've worked with the best of the best. You've climbed that ladder. You've started from the bottom and you've worked your way all the way to the top. What is your advice for somebody wanting to get into this business in the comedy realm? What would you say to them?
Well, first, before I get there, let me just go back to one thing, and this is kind of ties in together, but what I was saying with Gil, like we started during the pandemic, right? And like you said, sometimes it doesn't have to be this big stuff. You're just kind of getting your creativity out. And that's what happened. The all that pressure of everything that was going on in the world, we would jump on Zoom, and it started off, it was almost like a therapy session. We just jump on and we start talking about stuff and we start laughing, and it really, really just made you feel good. And so that's where the creativity started. And I think that comes up to my advice is find what works for you. Make sure that it feels good in what you're doing. Don't try and be somebody else. Don't try and be the next Dave Chappelle. Don't try and just be you. There's plenty of people. If you watch the late night shows, right, they all tackle the same material, but they have different spins on it. They have different jokes, different angles. So just find what's comfortable for you and what works for you, and do that. and have confidence in what you're putting out there. And what I'll say from like a more humbling point of view is don't be protective. I once heard someone say everybody in Hollywood is your enemy. And it's like, no, you need people, right? As I said, I got jobs through friends a lot of the time. And if someone asks you to read the script and give them notes. Don't be afraid to, don't just look out for yourself, because there's going to be plenty of times you need other people, especially in this business. And so
100%.
I think find the stuff that makes you happy. If it's with comedy, find the stuff, like I said, the adapting stories and making people feel good by making them laugh, that type of stuff. But find what works for you, and don't worry about potentially failing. Don't worry about not being big enough. Don't have conversations in your head. This is something I always like to say. This is the advice I give people. You watch Cheers, right? Obviously one of the best sitcoms of all time. Sure. Well, there's an episode where Sam Malone wants to race Robin Coolcord's boat in the regatta. And he says, well, I'm going to ask him, hey, since you're not racing it, why don't I race it? And then he says, well, then he's going to say, well, why should I let someone like you race my boat? And then he says, well, I'm going to say because I'm an experienced racer. And he's going to say, yeah, but I'm not going to give a yutz like you my boat. He plays this whole conversation out in his head. Cut to Robin walks out of the other room. He goes, hey, Sam, I was thinking, since I can't race my boat, why don't you? And he's like, oh, yeah, all right. And then he's like, and I'm not a yutz, he yells back to Robin. So my point is, don't play everything out in your head, right? Don't play out all these things and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it. I can't do this. You play so much stuff out in your head. You get so uptight and so tense that you're not living in the moment that you're actually in. Just relax, take a deep breath, have confidence in yourself, and let things play out the way they're going to play out. Nobody should determine who you are. You shouldn't. Your self-worth, or whatever it may be, your comedic worth, or your career isn't based on what someone else may or may not say, because there's a bunch of jackasses out there as well.
It's such smart advice. Probably the smartest thing I've ever heard you say. But
yeah, well, I got that from a. No, I'm just
right. No, but you're right. It's so true what you said. And, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten in my own way because, your inner conversation with yourself, it sometimes will stop you from moving forward and doing the things that you should be doing and moving your career forward. You got to have confidence in yourself and take chances, right? Just take chances. How many times have you taken a chance on something and it panned out and you're like, oh shit. Okay. Well, I'm glad I did that.
And I've always said, listen, whatever, I could take a job and I could take a shot at it and I could get fired, but you know what? I could move out of Hollywood tomorrow. I could do it, and I'm still going to be the same person that I am. So I'm not letting these things define me. And I think by coming to that realization along my career, I realized not to be so nervous about what I'm doing. And that really gave me the ease to be funny and to share what I thought was funny with people. Is everybody going to like it? No. But at least I'm comfortable there and I'm not being defined by other people.
Right, right.
Is that okay? Was that good?
That was perfect. That was perfect.
Okay.
I'll voice over. So I'll fix it and I'll voice it over. But no, but it's true. Like when I was working at Ellen and I thought I was at the pinnacle of, my career, the show was huge and this and that. And then it came time where I decided to leave. And I was so scared to leave because I didn't think there was anything else out there that was going to be as satisfying or other work that I can do. But I did. I took that leap and I left. And it wound up being one of the greatest things I can do because it furthered my career and I got to do so many other things. But I remember just feeling so scared of should I do this? Should I not do this? Fear can really, it can pause your career and you can't let it. This is Los Angeles, New York, the entertainment business. There is creativity happening all the time. There are new shows popping up all the time. There are new projects happening all the time. So you never have to feel like you're stuck in one thing. There is so much out there that you can go and you can try and you can do. And if you fail, who cares? You learn from it and you move on and you do the next thing. But the more you do and the more you try, you're going to eventually get to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's very true. I want to leave you with one thing that happened this morning. So I was out walking my dog and we're going across the street and this guy, there's like one of those stop signs that people kind of roll through. So I let a car go and then I started crossing the street with my dog, and this one guy wasn't looking, and he started driving, and he almost hit us. And I kind of pulled back, and he realized and slammed on the brakes. And I looked at him, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? And he unrolled his window, and I was like, he's like, go ahead. I was like, no, I'm not going to go. Just go. And I was pretty angry because it was, it was a moment that could have ended badly. And then he was like, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. And I could tell all of a sudden he was nervous, and I realized, you know what? You don't know what people are going through. Right. And I was like, hey, so this guy almost hit my dog and I, and how did that conversation end? I said, hey man, have a good day. Not in a mean way, not in a sarcastic way. All of a sudden this guy looked so like distraught, and I realized, what am I going to be an ass for? Like, he didn't mean to do it. The last thing he wants to do is take out a guy walking his dog. And my instinct was to be aggressive and be like, what's the matter with you? And then I realized, you know what, something could be the matter with him. He could be having a hard time right now. And I know this sounds righteous, like I'm dropping this knowledge because I've had moments where I haven't behaved this way, but this just happened this morning. So I thought I'd share this and be like, you know what, you don't know what people are going through out there, right? So just, you get a chance to make someone laugh. You get a chance to be nice to someone. You get a chance to help someone, or just at the very least, don't make them feel like shit if you don't know what they're going through. You know what I mean? Just give people a little bit of a pass.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. And I'm so glad there's people like you in this world, because
me too.
Over the years, you have made me laugh countless times. I've thoroughly enjoyed not only working with you, but being your friend. You're a special guy, Demetri, and I love you to death. I thank you for doing this podcast, and let's go grab drinks.